Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. I knew you'd show up eventually. Vultures always smell death, snapped Stephanie, arms folded like a queen guarding a throne she never earned. My palms clenched at my sides. That's rich coming from you, Steph. You moved into his house before the body was even cold. Because I was the only one taking care of him. You wouldn't know that, you were too busy being the family disappointment. The room was dead silent except for the fire crackling in the massive stone fireplace behind us. The will hadn't even been opened yet, and already the knives were out. Aunt Marlene sipped her wine like this was theater, and Uncle Greg tried to pretend he was too old to care, but his eyes were sharp, waiting. Waiting for the money. Waiting for their prize. I'm not here for your drama, I said, teeth grinding. I'm here because I loved him. Unlike the rest of you, who only circled him for his accounts. Stephanie's laugh was cruel and sharp. Please. He hadn't spoken to you in 5 years. You think one teary hospital visit in the end fixes that? Grow up. I didn't come here to fight, I said quietly. But I won't let you rewrite history. Oh honey, she smirked, you don't have that kind of power. But that's where she was wrong. Because I knew something none of them did. Because the last time I saw our grandfather, he told me everything. And he made me promise to keep quiet until today. Until they were all in one room. Until the lawyer stood at the front of the study, holding the sealed manila envelopes like weapons behind his polished glasses. He stepped forward now, adjusting his tie. Is everyone here? Murmurs. Shifts in chairs. Nods. Nobody looked at me. Nobody even asked how I'd been. I was the stray. The forgotten. The black sheep. Very well, the lawyer said, placing a stack of documents on the desk. Per Mr. Dawson's final request, the reading of his will shall begin now. That's when Stephanie leaned toward me again, her voice a venomous whisper. After today, you won't even have a roof over your head. He left you nothing. You're just here for the scraps. I smiled, finally. Not because she was right. But because I knew how wrong she was. No, I whispered back, I'm here for the fire. I was 12 when I learned silence has a price. That was the first time I saw Grandpa Dawson cut someone out of his life. His business partner stole from him a 6-figure sum. But Grandpa didn't rage. He didn't scream. He just stood there, silent, expression flat, and said, You've made your decision. And that was it. The man vanished from our lives, and so did the money. But what Grandpa taught me that day was this: truth waits. And when it arrives, it doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard. Today was that day. Before I begin, the lawyer said, flipping open a dark leather folder, I must inform you that Mr. Dawson prepared something unique. One final instruction. A message to be delivered after the main contents are read. I saw heads tilt. Brows raise. Stephanie rolled her eyes dramatically. Let me guess, another one of his lessons? He always loved the dramatics. Greg chuckled. Bet he recorded another one of those weird VHS tapes, huh? But I stayed quiet. Because I knew about the envelope. I knew it was meant only for me. The will started simple. The cabin in Maine went to Uncle Greg. The stocks were split between Marlene and Stephanie. Jewelry and antique furniture detailed out, piece by piece. No surprises there. Laughter, even. Whispered jokes. Like it was all just a polite division of a kingdom. Until the lawyer paused. And finally, he said, reaching into his case, Mr. Dawson left one last envelope, not to be opened with the rest. His explicit instructions were to hand this to. His eyes scanned the page, Cameron Dawson. The room fell silent. Aunt Marlene sat up straight, her wineglass frozen midair. Greg leaned forward. Stephanie's face lost all its smugness. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "That can't be right." But the lawyer was already walking toward me, placing the thick envelope in my hands. "That's what it says," he replied calmly. "No one else is to see the contents. He said you'd know what to do." My fingers trembled slightly as I took it. Thick paper. Heavy seal. It was real. He had kept his word. "Let me see that," Stephanie hissed, lunging toward me, but I stood quickly. "Don't touch me. You're not seriously going to act like you earned something," she snapped. "You haven't been here. You didn't do anything." "Neither did you," I shot back, voice rising. "You weren't caring for him, you were managing him. Like a bank account. He told me everything." Her face turned white. What do you mean?" "I mean he saw through all of you." I turned to the lawyer. "I need a few minutes alone." Stephanie exploded. "What the hell is in that letter? What did he give you?" I didn't answer. I walked out of the study and into the cold hallway, the envelope pressed to my chest like a heartbeat. What was inside would change everything. They had no idea what they laughed at. They had no clue what they'd mocked, dismissed, tossed aside. Because inside this envelope was power. And I was about to use it. I sat in Grandpa's old reading chair, the one with the torn leather arm and the faint smell of pipe tobacco. It felt like I was stepping into his memory, into the space where he used to sit for hours, reading and writing and thinking while the rest of the world screamed for his money. The envelope was still in my hands, heavy, not just with paper, but with weight. With truth. With vengeance he couldn't deliver while alive. I tore it open. Inside wasn't just one letter. There were 3. The first was addressed to me, in his jagged, familiar handwriting. "Cameron. If you're reading this, it means they've heard the will, and they've laughed. Good. Let them laugh. You and I both know laughter doesn't always mean joy, sometimes it's just the sound people make when they're scared, or caught, or pretending. This family built its empire on hard work, but somewhere along the line, greed infected it like rot. You stayed away from the disease, and for that, I'm proud of you. I know I was hard on you when you left. I wanted you to fight for your place, but instead, you chose peace. That was the braver choice. They think I gave them everything. They're wrong. Everything that mattered, I left with you. Read the second letter in front of them. Then give the third one to the lawyer. Let the truth do what I couldn't. Love. Granddad." My breath caught in my throat. The second envelope was marked in red ink, "TOB" read out loud. Immediately. I stood. Walked back into the lion's den. Stephanie was mid-sentence, talking about tax implications like she already had her accountant on speed dial. When she saw me with the paper in hand, her voice faltered. "You better not." "I will," I interrupted. "He wanted this read in front of all of you." "You want his money? Then you'll sit and listen to what he really thought of you." Uncle Greg scoffed. "Come on, Cam. Don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I said calmly. "I'm making history." I unfolded the second letter and began reading. To my so-called family. If you're hearing this, congratulations. You've officially taken the bait. You wanted your slices of the pie, so I gave you crumbs. That's all most of you ever really worked for. Stephanie, you were always the loudest in the room, but never the smartest. You thought playing nurse to a dying man would make you my heir. You were wrong. I saw your bank transfers. I saw the withdrawals from my accounts to your little side business. And I saw how fast you moved in the day after the stroke. Greg, you acted indifferent, but your lawyers weren't. You sent them sniffing for my real estate deeds last year. I watched you pretend to grieve while doing backdoor deals behind my back. I didn't say anything because I was saving everything for this moment. Marlene, you thought wine and pearls made you classy. But even cheap glass sparkles under the right light. You haven't visited me in 3 years. The only call I ever got from you was the one where you asked me for just a small loan for your cruise. I hope it was worth it. Now, here's the truth, the person who stood by me when I couldn't walk, who never asked for anything, who held my hand and cried with me when I told him I was scared, was Cameron. He gave me back something none of you ever could, dignity. Which is why, effective immediately, the entire Dawson estate, all assets, holdings, trusts, land, stocks, and company shares have been transferred into a private trust, controlled solely by him. He is now the executor. He is your boss. Laugh at that. The room exploded. What the hell? Stephanie shrieked, grabbing the paper like she could tear the words off it. Uncle Greg shot to his feet. This is fake. This has to be, he can't do this. The lawyer raised his hand like a referee. Actually, he can. And he did. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder, documents already notarized, dates sealed, signatures verified. He moved everything to the Cameron Dawson Trust 2 weeks before his passing. I have legal authority to enforce it. Marlene collapsed back into her chair, her wineglass slipping from her hand and shattering on the hardwood floor. I stood still. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. Because this wasn't revenge. This was justice. I warned you, I said softly. You thought you knew everything. But you never saw me. Not once. Stephanie stormed toward me, her voice venom. You think this makes you better than us? You were nothing. No, I said quietly. I was free. That's why he trusted me. You were all chained to greed. I was just his grandson. I reached into my coat and handed the third envelope to the lawyer. He opened it, cleared his throat, and read the final sentence Grandpa had ever written. Let the wolves tear each other apart. The shepherd already chose his heir. They didn't leave quietly. Marlene was the first to slam the door, heels clicking furiously across the hardwood as she muttered something about contesting the will. Stephanie lingered the longest, standing across from me like she was trying to burn a hole through my chest with her glare. You think you've won, she said, stepping closer, almost hissing. But trust me, this isn't over. I know, I replied. People like you never stop until there's nothing left to steal. She didn't slap me. I thought she might. But what she did was worse, she smiled. Cold. Calculated. You're not ready for what's coming. Enjoy your little power trip while it lasts. She walked out, the lawyer watching her leave like he'd just seen a storm roll in. You okay? He asked gently. I looked around the old study. My grandfather's presence was still there. Strong. But suddenly the air felt tighter. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was loaded. I'm fine, I said. But something tells me I won't be for long. And I was right. The next week was a war I never asked for. It started with phone calls, endless, petty, threatening. A distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years called me screaming, demanding I make things right and share the inheritance like family should. Then came the lawyers. One by one, my relatives lawyered up. The legal letters started arriving daily: notice of intent to contest, request for disclosure, petition for mediation. They wanted blood. And they didn't care if they had to tear my grandfather's name apart to get it. But the worst blow didn't come in the mail. It came in the form of betrayal. Devon. My cousin. My oldest friend. The only one I thought might actually be decent. He showed up at my door on a Sunday, holding a six-pack and smiling like nothing had happened. Just wanted to check in. Talk, maybe? I let him in. We sat on the back porch, where Grandpa used to drink his tea. At first, it felt normal. We talked about high school, about how weird it was being back in that house without Grandpa there. I almost believed it. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a recorder. I just need you to say something, he said quickly. Anything that sounds like doubt. Just, tell me you don't think this is fair. I stared at him, stunned. You're wired? His face crumbled. Look, I didn't have a choice. Stephanie's paying me to get something on you. She said she'd cut me off otherwise. You sold me out for what? A cut of what she thinks she deserves? Devon set the recorder down slowly. Cam, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought maybe if I got her what she wanted, she'd let us both in. That's the problem, I said bitterly. You thought I wanted in. I stood and walked back inside, locking the door behind me. That night, I stayed up reading the trust documents again. Grandpa had prepared for this. Every loophole. Every challenge. He knew exactly what they'd try. But what he hadn't prepared me for was the loneliness. They weren't just trying to destroy the inheritance. They were trying to destroy me. The next morning, news broke. Someone had leaked Grandpa's medical files. They were using his dementia diagnosis from 2 years ago to argue mental incompetence at the time of signing. Fraudulent trust, the headlines read. Family prepares to strip grandson of fortune. I stared at the screen, fists clenched. The same people who left him alone when he was sick were now using that sickness to erase his final wish. It wasn't just cruel. It was evil. I called the lawyer. They're going to try everything, he warned. They're calling witnesses, doctors, even a handwriting analyst. I don't care, I said. Let them come. He hesitated. Cameron, there's one more thing. I closed my eyes. Go on. Stephanie filed a subpoena for your personal records. She's trying to prove you coerced him emotionally. She says you manipulated a dying man for control. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. It was like every breath I took was being dragged across glass. After everything, after every moment I'd sat by his bedside, after every night I changed his sheets and made sure he ate when no one else even called. This was how they wanted to erase me. I'm not backing down, I said finally. I know, he said softly. But this is going to get worse before it gets better. I hung up. Walked to the fireplace. Took Grandpa's photo off the mantel. They want war? I whispered. Fine. I flipped the frame over and took out the USB drive hidden in the back. Grandpa's secret weapon. He always said the truth has a voice. It was time to make them hear it. I didn't sleep that night. I held the flash drive in my palm like it was made of glass. It felt heavier than it should, like it carried every word my grandfather never got the chance to say in public. I paced the study until the sun came up, listening to the house creak like it, too, remembered everything. By morning, I was done pacing. I slid the USB into the laptop and pressed play. At first, just static. Then, his voice. Cameron, Grandpa said, his voice tired but clear, if you're hearing this, it means the vultures are circling. I sat down slowly, hands trembling. I know they'll fight you. They'll smear me. They'll act like you tricked a sick old man into giving you what he built. But the truth is, they never wanted to build anything. They just waited to take. His voice cracked on the word take, like it physically hurt him to say it. Your Aunt Marlene borrowed from me 5 times in 10 years. Never paid back a cent. Stephanie stopped calling when I stopped wiring money. Devon? I caught him stealing from the safe twice. But I forgave them every time, because I thought blood meant something. I was wrong. There was a long pause. Cameron, you're the only one who stayed when I couldn't walk. You carried me to the bathroom when I was too proud to ask. You read to me when I forgot how to read myself. You missed your graduation to sit with me in the hospital. You didn't ask for anything. My throat tightened. So I gave you everything. He took a breath that rattled through the speakers. I know they'll come after you. That's why I made this. Because you need to know, I wasn't manipulated. I wasn't confused. I was sick, yes. But not stupid. My mind was still mine, and so was this decision. And if they want to drag my name through the mud just to get their hands on something they didn't earn, then let them. But they'll be digging through the truth. Another pause. Oh, and if Stephanie's listening, tell her I saw those fake invoices. She wasn't nearly as clever as she thought. I let the silence ring for a while after it ended. Then I stood up and forwarded the file to my lawyer. You're going to want to hear this, I typed. So is the judge. I didn't stop there. I sent the clip to every news outlet that had printed lies about me. I uploaded it to the estate's website. I made sure every single person who had ever laughed at the reading of the will would now hear the voice of the man they claimed to love. And just like that, the story changed. 2 days later, Stephanie called me. Not her assistant. Not her lawyer. Her. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She cried. I didn't know he recorded that, she whispered, voice shaking. I didn't know he really said all that about me. I didn't respond. I'm sorry, she tried again. It got out of hand. We were just angry. But maybe we can work something out, quietly, maybe even go public, together, say the family's healing. No, I said simply. What? I said no. There's no deal. No public apology. No performance. She was quiet. Then I said what I had wanted to say for years. You didn't lose because of a tape. You lost because he finally saw you. Click. I hung up. And I didn't feel sorry. Because in that moment, I realized something else. Winning wasn't about the money. It was about finally being heard. The next time I walked into the lawyer's office, he stood up to greet me. You've got the judge, he said, smiling. Full validation. They're dropping their claims. The court accepted the recording as his final testimony. I nodded, keeping my emotions in check. You did it, Cam. No, I said quietly. We did. He did. He handed me a thick envelope. Last item from the trust. Says it's yours only after everything's settled. I opened it slowly. Inside wasn't money. Or property deeds. It was a letter. In Grandpa's handwriting. My boy. If you're reading this, you've survived them. I always hoped you would. This house. This legacy. It's yours now, not because you wanted it, but because you earned it. Not with a signature. Not with a smile. With sacrifice. With silence. With love. But I need you to do one more thing for me. Take care of this place. Not the furniture. Not the land. The heart of it. Use it for good. Build something that lasts. Something they can't laugh at, can't steal, and can't burn down. And maybe, just maybe, when they come back years from now, full of regret, you'll be kinder than I was. But I'll understand if you're not. Grandpa ***. I folded the letter. Put it back in the envelope. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Most people think winning a fortune changes your life. They're right, but not in the way you expect. It doesn't buy peace. It doesn't buy closure. It doesn't even silence the noise. If anything, it makes everything louder. Jealous relatives don't disappear. They just get quieter. Then sneakier. But I didn't care anymore. Not about their texts, their voicemails, or the pity messages they started posting on Facebook after the video went viral. Because I wasn't living for their apologies. I was finally living on my terms. First, I fixed the roof. Grandpa always hated that leak in the east wing. Then I sold off the luxury cars collecting dust in the garage. I never needed 10 of anything. Just one that worked. Then I called up every staff member who'd worked here before the chaos, the gardeners, the cooks, the housekeepers, and offered them double what they made before. With benefits. And a contract that guaranteed dignity. Most of them cried. Some of them didn't believe it until the first check cleared. But I meant every word. This house, his house, wasn't going to rot into a monument to greed. It was going to breathe again. 2 months later, I reopened the estate. Not as a residence. As a shelter. A transition home for teens aging out of foster care. For battered women. For veterans. For anyone who, like me, knew what it felt like to be invisible while everyone else took what they wanted. I called it the Willsworth Foundation. Named not just after Grandpa's estate, but after the word he loved more than money, will. The will to fight. The will to stay. The will to rise. At the ribbon cutting, people showed up who hadn't spoken to me in years. The mayor came. A few old friends. And standing awkwardly at the back, sunglasses on, was Devon. Yeah. Him. I hadn't seen him since court. I could have kicked him out. Instead, I walked over. He took off the glasses. I saw what you did with the place, he said quietly. It's good. I waited. I wasn't good, he added. Back then. I wanted the shortcut. I didn't want the work. Just the win. I nodded once. What do you want now? He shrugged. A second chance. I figured. I'd ask if you need help. That hit harder than I expected. He was still my cousin. Still the same guy who once stole from Grandpa's safe. But now, he looked tired. Humbled. Maybe even ready. I don't need help, I said honestly. Then I smiled. But this place does. The next few weeks were a blur. We launched programs, hired counselors, hosted workshops. I saw kids walk in broken and walk out believing. I watched mothers find jobs and start over. I heard laughter echo through halls that had once been soaked in bitterness. I had everything. But I still hadn't opened the final envelope. Yeah. There was one more. The smallest one. No stamp. No seal. Just my name on it in black ink. I'd kept it locked in the study drawer. Waiting. Maybe out of fear. Maybe out of respect. One night, I finally sat down with it. Inside was a photograph. Old. Faded. From the 60s. Grandpa, holding a baby. Not me. Someone else. On the back, in his handwriting. Find him. He deserves to know. I stared at it for a long time. Who was he? A brother? An uncle? Another heir? And why now? But I didn't hesitate. The next day, I hired a PI. Within 2 weeks, I had a name. Aaron Willsworth. Mid-50s. Living in a small town 3 states over. No fortune. No press. Just a mechanic with a quiet life and a crooked smile that looked a lot like Grandpa's. He didn't know. Didn't know his real father. Didn't know the name Willsworth. Didn't know the man who left him behind had spent the final months of his life regretting that silence. I flew out to meet him. We sat in his backyard under a dying oak tree. I don't want your money, Aaron said first. I didn't offer any. He looked surprised. Then why are you here? I pulled out the photo. Because he wanted you to know. He stared at it for a long time. Eyes watering. I always wondered, he whispered. Thought maybe he was dead. Or didn't care. He did, I said. He just didn't know how to say it. Aaron didn't take a penny. Didn't even visit the estate. But he did write a letter. For himself. For his kids. And for Grandpa. He asked if I'd place it in the study. I did. Framed it. Right next to the will everyone laughed at. Funny thing is, They're not laughing anymore. Now they call it a miracle. They call it redemption. They call it a second chance. But I don't care what they call it. Because I know what it really was. A home. Rebuilt with love. Guarded by truth. And handed down to someone who finally gave a damn. And it all started the moment that last envelope hit my hand.